Headlights were coming up the road. My grandparents were returning. The figure looked toward the lights and started to move away and tucked itself behind a tree near the house. My oldest uncle ran toward the truck with a gun. My grandfather got out of the car and my uncle pointed to the tree. The thing was poking its head out to observe what they were doing. My grandfather ran into the house and over to the stove and grabbed a handful of ashes and rubbed them over the gun and placed ash on a bullet and put it into the chamber. He walked out into the porch, fired toward the tree. Whatever the thing was didn't expect the gun to go off. The gunshot echoed and the dark figure began running. My grandma chased my aunt inside, and my uncles and my grandfather went after it. There weren't many roads or paths, so as my grandfather and uncles chased the figure, the truck was bouncing and the headlights were not fixed on a particular spot. My uncle swears that whenever the headlights would hit the figure, he saw a woman. Not only that, whoever it was running on all fours like a bear. My grandfather eventually stopped the truck, and as they neared the ditch that drops about 20 feet, he got out and began to yell in Navajo. My uncle says that he was yelling about a local woman. He yelled that he wasn't scared, and he knew it was her, and told her to leave his family alone. A few days passed, and there was news that the woman that my grandfather was yelling about had passed. I've always been told that if you know who the skinwalker is, say their name, and it will kill them.
Oh, shit. So yeah, you gotta know who the person is, but how would you know who they are? You just you gotta think of your enemies, start naming off folks.
I'd be like, Alex.
Oh, yeah, done. Problem solved.
That was a scary fucking story, though, don't you think?
It was.
Yeah. So she has another story, and I know it's a little bit longer, but I thought it was an interesting one because it pointed out a couple of things. So I'll read it and we'll see what happens.
Cool.
My cousin lived in the eastern agency of the Navajo Nation in a community known as Crown Point. She was still living with her parents at this time and was a good girl. She had good grades, a nice ride, and was a very popular girl that played on the basketball team. When she told us this story, it was out of the ordinary, and the events that followed would also deepen my beliefs in the traditional Navajo way and of the taboos associated with the Navajo culture. My cousin was coming home from basketball practice, which ran past sunset. It was during the colder months, so it was dark by the time she pulled into her neighborhood. She pulled into the small housing community that she lived in. It was far from a fenced community, but there were streetlights, and the neighbors weren't too far from one another. As she neared her home, she saw a group of dogs. This wasn't unlikely, as there are random packs of stray dogs that roam rural communities. These dogs don't belong to anyone, and they get food where they can get it. As she got closer, she noticed that something was off about the dogs. There were 4 dogs, and they were sitting in a circle, all facing each other. This really didn't faze her until she spoke about the event later. Because this was a housing community, my cousin couldn't barrel down the road, so she slowly drove past the group of dogs and kept going on her way. As she continued to drive, she noticed in her peripheral vision that something was running alongside her car. She turned her head to see that a brown dog from the group was trotting alongside her car. She didn't mind much until she hit a strategically placed speed bump. The impact of the bump made her entire car wobble. She looked over at the dog again, still casually keeping pace with the car. She tried to ignore the dog, and even tried speeding up, keeping in mind that there were speed bumps. The dog continued to keep pace. My cousin had to eventually stop at a stop sign, and she began to feel immensely uncomfortable, and tried to keep her eyes forward. But curiosity got the best of her. She looked over at the dog. It was facing forward. She continued to stare, and that is when the dog turned its head. Instead of the face of a dog, there was the flat face of a man, covered in hair, smiling ear to ear.
That's too much. It's fantastic.
Fear shot through her body. My cousin pushed the pedal to the floor, not daring to look back in her rearview mirror. She reached her house and barely pulled herself into the door, weak from fear. My aunt came to her, and my cousin began to sob. She told my aunt everything, and they scheduled a meeting with the medicine man the next day. The medicine man told my cousin that she was very fortunate. The skinwalker wasn't meant for her. She just happened to spot it while it was out to bring another person misfortune. He also told her that the laughing and talking that she heard in the night was the skinwalker talking to his friends, letting them know that someone saw him, and that he had scared her. He also told her that if the skinwalker was looking for her, and she had seen him like that, it would have killed her. After that encounter, my cousin suffered from many ailments and had to stop playing basketball for a while. She had many ceremonies and eventually got back on her feet. What do you think about that?
The dog-faced little character, that's fantastic, man. That would scare the shit out of me.
Man-faced dog.
Man-faced dog.
Yeah, so that's a pretty common theme that I've seen in other stories, that people will say it looks like a dog or it looks like a bear, but it will have the face that looks like a man more than an animal. And when they smile, it goes like literally from ear to ear.
Like Cheshire Cat style.
Yeah.
Damn.
Spooky.
Yeah.
According to anthropologist David Zimmerman of the Navajo Nation Historic Preservation Department, skinwalkers are folks that possess knowledge of medicine, both practical, either healing the sick, and spiritual, maintaining harmony. And they are both wrapped together in ways that are nearly impossible to untangle.
And no Native Americans really want to come across a skinwalker or to even discuss them at all, especially with strangers, which is the exact opposite of what we're doing right now.
Oops.
We're discussing this with all these strangers, but mainly because in doing so, you might invite the attention of one. Fantastic.
Awesome.
I mean, I understand that. Like, don't put negative stuff out there because it can't come back to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They sometimes see it as if that unknown person who is asking questions about the skinwalkers could possibly be one themselves and are just looking for another victim.
Is that like when a stoner says, "Hey man, if you're a cop, you gotta tell me, bro.
You gotta tell me it's
It's the law.
It's the law. It's illegal unless you tell me." Right? Skinwalkers are not the creature under your bed trying to get you. They aren't there to teach you a lesson like to children playing in ditches. They don't lose control and kill entire villages. But like humans, they do kill, but they always have motivation for these murderous acts. And unlike humans, who just seem to like to kill sometimes.
Ew. Serial killers.
Sometimes.
So there's a lot of descriptions of these beings walking on two legs, even though they appear to be four-legged creatures. Other frightening consistencies that I found in stories people told were that the animals would almost always have either a human-looking face or no face with just two glowing eyes.
That's nightmare stuff.
Holy shit, dude. I would fucking shit my pants.
Just the no-face thing.
I would shit my pants.
Like, oh, hey, check out that little cute deer over there. And he'd like look over and that deer has his no face.
Just eyes.
It's terrible.
Just eyes in blackness.
Just eyes, yeah.
Almost every account talks about a sinister smile that spreads from ear to ear and showing of ugly yellow teeth.
They don't have crest.
They don't have good dental care, apparently. Also, there are reports of people seeing or hearing a skinwalker outside of their residence, but the skinwalker actually never goes inside of a home. Thank God.
Yeah.
There's also a popular story that the New Mexico State Police often see skinwalkers on a certain stretch of road in the Navajo Territory, and I'm guessing it's probably Highway 491, which used to be Highway 666. Did you know, Alex, that that's one of the most deadly highways in New Mexico?
I've been on that highway a couple of times way back in the day.
It's weird.
Going to Vegas from Colorado, I think. It was actually kind of a scary little trip. And I know we were young and stuff, but there was actually a point where I saw a sign and it was just a cow. And I was like, okay, what is it like? I don't get that. It's just a cow sign. And all of a sudden the road got washed out pretty much. It was just all dirt. And so we were like, okay, I guess we're driving and trying to figure out where the road is and everything. And so we finally kind of find where the road was. And we just started spacing out and just driving. It was like 3:00 in the morning. And there was just a cow in the middle of the road. And we almost hit that bad boy.
The sign is like letting you know there's a cow actually in the middle of the road.
Heads up, there's cows out here. And so looking back on it, hindsight and all, probably should have been paying a little bit more attention.
Can I ask you a question? Are you the guy that wrote the first story? I wonder if the cow was a skinwalker.
It's a possibility.
Dude.
It looked, and I swear I was telling my buddy as he was driving, I'm like, hey, that's funny. There's the cow. And he was like, what? And I was like, the cow. And he was going straight at this cow. And I'm like, hey, man, the cow. And he was like, oh, and barely inches. I mean, and I was sitting in the passenger seat. And I remember I looked right in that fucking cow's eye. And he was like, oh. It was a scary moment for everyone.
Oh, yeah. The cow was scared.
So he could have been a skinwalker.
You were scared.
Right at me. So according to author Tony Hillerman, a skinwalker is tied up with the Navajo concept of good and evil. The Navajos believe that life is kind of a wind blowing through you. Some people have a dark wind, and they tend to be a little bit more evil. How do you tell? Some people have more money than they need, and they aren't helping their kinfolk. And that's one symptom of it. Along with the tendency toward evil, if they're initiated into witchcraft cult, they get a lot of powers. And depending on the circumstances, they can turn into a dog, they can fly, and they can even disappear. Many of my Navajo friends would tell me emphatically, especially when they don't know me very well, that they don't believe in all that stuff. And then when you get to be a friend, they start telling you all about the first time they ever saw one.
So, dude, there's a list on thoughtcatalog.com that gives you the 14 reasons to be fucking scared out of your mind of skinwalkers.
Okay, let's go over it.
All right. So a skinwalker, we talked about, is a person with the ability to transform into any type of animal at will.
Okay.
We talked about that.
They are most frequently seen as coyotes, wolves, foxes, eagles, owls, or crows.
And some of them can steal faces of people and could appear as someone you know.
Like take their faces off their face and wear them as a mask.
Hello, Clarice.
Oh, that's weird.
It puts the lotion on the skin, or else it gets the hose again.
If you lock eyes with a skinwalker, they can actually absorb themselves into your body and take control of your actions. So if I ever do anything bad again...
Like go to hot yoga?
I know what I'm going to say. I looked at a skinwalker, and they obviously took over my actions.
Why don't politicians use that more as an excuse?
If they know about it, if they hear this podcast, buddy, and they hear about this, they will probably start using that.
Like you find the next guy having anonymous sex in a bathroom, the next like senator, and he's like, "It wasn't me, it was a skinwalker."
While you're smoking meth.
And sending nudes to underage pages.
I mean, we say that, and it's like, oh, that's so silly, but that's happened. These are factual things. This has happened.
I don't know if it's happened to a senator.
Maybe not a senator, but I know it happened to a mayor.
Oh.
Yeah, or two. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Rare skinwalkers also have the ability to enchant the remains of corpses and use the substance as a poison dust for their victims.
So just blow some, like, dead people dust
like
on you?
Like skin cells? Here's some poison skin cells, motherfucker.
The legend of skinwalkers originates from the Navajo, a southwestern Native American tribe, which we've talked about.
Yep. In the Navajo language, the word skinwalker, yi nagloshi, translates to he who walks on all fours. I probably butchered that pronunciation.
Dude, I think you did fantastic. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but that sounded great.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Nilagoshi.
Yi nagloshi.
Nah, maybe nah.
Nah, gloshi.
Nagoshi.
That's interesting that's the translation.
He who walks on all fours.
Mm-hmm.
Skinwalkers have only entered the public discourse relatively recently compared to other phenomenon. In 1996, a team of scientists ventured to a Utah ranch to investigate a series of bizarre phenomenon.
All right, so we can talk about this because I started to read the Hunt for the Skinwalker book, which was these scientists that went to Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, and Skinwalker Ranch is in Utah?
It's in the Uinta Basin in Utah, part of the Ute Reservation. And the story starts in the book with a family that had purchased this ranch called Skinwalker Ranch. And they got a huge discount on it. Like they got it for super cheap.
You know what? Always be buyer beware.
Yeah.
If it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
It gets even weirder.
Okay.
So there was a stipulation in the contract that they were not to dig anywhere on the ranch without first getting permission from the original owners.
Because you don't want to find the bodies.
Right?
No, you can't, nowhere near that tree over there. Over there is fine. But the tree, no.
What would you do if that was like in your contract for your house?
Well, it makes you wonder how many contracts we sign that, we don't read the fine print.
Yeah.
They could say something like that for, any house, really.
So the family's moving in the house, right?
Okay.
They're like all excited. Beautiful ranch, hundreds of acres, gorgeous scenery. They're moving shit from their truck into the house, and this huge wolf just shows up on the edge of the property, and it's staring at them. And they're like, what do we do? And so the dad gets a gun, and he's like ready to shoot it. The wolf kind of like saunters over, and he's acting really tame. So the kids are actually able to pet the wolf.
So it's just some guy's Malamute or something.
Well,
it's a husky.
they said it was a lot larger than a normal wolf.
Okay.
And had these ugly yellow eyes.
Ugly.
Mm-hmm. But it was very calm, and it didn't seem like it wanted to hurt the family at all. There was a calf in a pen that was